Buckle up, because Paul Newman's car collection is about to take you on a ride through horsepower, heart, and Hollywood history. Most people remember him as a legendary actor and generous philanthropist, but far fewer know just how deeply he loved racing. For Newman, the camaraderie of the track was one of the sport's greatest rewards.
He didn't just show up for photo ops next to fast machines. He got behind the wheel, competed hard, and helped turn ordinary cars into champions. From vintage roadsters to snarling IMSA prototypes, his garage tells a story of grit, speed, and effortless cool. These weren't shelf trophies. They were tools he used to chase adrenaline and ambition. So shift into gear as we count down the cars that powered Paul Newman's second career on the racetrack, and stick around for number 3, a sleeper hiding a monster underneath.
14. Datsun 510. Newman's motorsports story didn't start with a Ferrari or a Porsche. It started with a modest Japanese sedan, the Datsun 510. After playing a race car driver in the 1969 film Winning, he got hooked on the sport and began training in earnest. He bought a 510 and started showing up for track days at Lime Rock Park near his Connecticut home. Nicknamed the poor man's BMW, the 510 packed a 1.6-liter inline-4 good for roughly 97 horsepower and 100 pound-feet of torque, made it to a 3-speed automatic, with a 0 to 60 time around 13.5 seconds. Modest numbers, sure, but its light chassis and independent rear suspension made it a grassroots racing favorite. Newman raced under the pseudonym P.L. Newman to dodge media attention and earn his stripes on merit alone. He moved quickly from club events to pro competition, eventually collecting 7 SCCA national titles. The 510 wasn't glamorous, but it lit the fuse on a second career that would rival his Hollywood fame. 13. Porsche 935. Newman's defining racing moment arrived at the 1983 24 Hours of Le Mans, where he co-drove a Porsche 935 to a stunning second-place overall finish at age 58. The heavily modified 935 77A was entered by Dick Barber Racing and shared among Newman, Rolf Stommelen, and Barber himself. A turbocharged descendant of the 911 built for FIA Group 5 competition, the car ran a 3.2-liter flat-six, producing roughly 589 horsepower and 439 pound-feet of torque through a 4-speed manual, with a top speed north of 186 miles per hour, making it one of the quickest GTX class entries of its day. Racing against factory prototypes, Newman's crew shocked expectations by finishing behind only the works Porsche 936. Wearing the now famous Hawaiian Tropic livery, the car sealed Newman's status as a legitimate endurance racer. That same chassis later ran under Apple Computer sponsorship, the only race car Apple has ever backed, and went on to win the 1981 Daytona 24 Hours and 1983 Sebring 12 Hours, though without Newman driving. 12. Hudson Hornet, the Doc Hudson tribute. Newman's bond with the Hudson Hornet went well beyond fiction. After voicing Doc Hudson, the grizzled retired racer in Pixar's Cars, 2006, he became forever tied to the real 1951 Hudson Hornet, a genuine NASCAR legend. The character was modeled on Herb Thomas's actual fabulous Hudson Hornet, which dominated early stock car racing thanks to its low center of gravity and step-down chassis. The original ran a 5.0-liter inline-six, making 145 horsepower, later boosted to 170 with a twin-carb, twin-H power setup, strong for its time. After Newman's passing in 2008, Fans and collectors began building custom Hornets styled after Doc Hudson, navy paint, red wheels, and the iconic 51 on the door. Many tributes add modern touches like disc brakes and crate V8s while keeping the Hornet's classic silhouette.
Pixar honored Newman by retiring the character and renaming the Piston Cup the Hudson Hornet Memorial Piston Cup in Cars 3.
11. 1970 Triumph TR6. Newman's 1970 Triumph TR6 reflected his love of classic European engineering and spirited driving. Built between 1968 and 1976, the TR6 used a 2.5-liter inline-six, making 104 horsepower, US spec, and 143 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 4-speed manual, independent rear suspension, and front disc brakes, a proper sports car for its era.
This wasn't a weekend cruiser for Newman. In 1976, he drove a retired Group 44 TR6 in SCCA production class competition at Road Atlanta, dueling Lee Mueller's TR7 for most of the race before settling for second, a result he accepted with characteristic grace. The TR6's scalloped hood, kicked-up tail, and throaty exhaust made it a cult favorite. For Newman, it was a proving ground, sharpening the skills that would later net him multiple SCCA championships, and it remains a symbol of his early years and his respect for performance, regardless of badge.
10. 1986 Nissan 300ZX IMSA GTO. Newman's 1986 Nissan 300ZX was central to his IMSA GTO championship that year. Built by Bob Sharp Racing, it took the second-generation Z car and stripped it down for competition, fitting a heavily reworked 3.0-liter turbocharged V6 that could top 600 horsepower depending on boost and setup.
The tube-frame chassis, lightweight composite panels, and race-tuned aerodynamics were built for endurance speed, riding on wide slicks with a sequential gearbox that was cutting-edge for the era. Newman drove it to victory at Road Atlanta in October 1986, edging teammate Jim Fitzgerald by 0.6 of a second to claim the SCCA GTO national title, his fourth.
The car now sits in the Paul Newman collection, curated by Adam Carolla, one of the most technically sophisticated machines Newman ever raced.
9. 1979 Nissan 280ZX twin-turbo V8. Newman's 1979 Nissan 280ZX twin-turbo V8 was a fire-breathing prototype that captured his shift from movie star to genuine racer. One of only 3 experimental 280ZX chassis built by Bob Sharp Racing with a twin-turbo V8, it reportedly produced an eye-watering 933 horsepower, a jaw-dropping figure for its time.
It rode on a lightweight tube frame with aggressive bodywork built for grip and downforce, powered by a heavily modified Chevrolet-based V8 fed by twin turbos through a race transmission. Newman ran it in SCCA GTO and IMSA events, where it earned a reputation for brutal speed and fearless driving. Less famous than his 300ZX or Porsche 935, it was nonetheless central to his competitive peak in the early 80s. Preserved today in the Adam Carolla curated collection, it remains proof of Newman's mechanical instincts and appetite for raw performance, feral, and proudly branded with his PLN initials. 8. 1989 Oldsmobile Cutlass race car. At first glance, the 1989 Oldsmobile Cutlass looks like an ordinary American sedan, but Newman turned it into a fierce competitor that hid serious performance behind plain looks. Built for SCCA competition, it packed extensive upgrades under its unassuming skin, running a Buick V6 when Newman first campaigned it in the 1989 Trans Am series.
NFL star Walter Payton also raced it before it eventually joined Adam Carolla's collection. The chassis was gutted and reinforced with a roll cage, while stiffer springs, adjustable shocks, and performance sway bars sharpened the handling. Big brakes provided reliable stopping power, and lightweight wheels with sticky tires maximized grip.
Despite its plain Jane looks, the Cutlass held its own against far more exotic machinery, and Newman's feel for its balance made it a genuine threat on road courses across the country, a perfect example of his knack for turning everyday cars into racers.
7. Volvo 960 wagon with a Ford V8. Newman's Volvo 960 wagon packing a Ford V8 is the ultimate sleeper car story, a family hauler with a muscle car heart. Built in the mid-1990s, the unassuming wagon was commissioned by Newman and engineered by Ross Converse of Converse Engineering, a specialist in dropping Ford V8s into Volvos. At its core sat a 5.0-liter Ford Racing V8, the same engine found in the Mustang GT, good for around 380 horsepower, and Newman added a Ken Bell supercharger to push output past 400. The car kept its factory look, roof rack and all, making it nearly invisible on the road. Newman's aim was simple: build something that could outrun a Corvette without ever raising an eyebrow.
The 960's rear-wheel drive layout and independent rear suspension made it a natural platform for the swap, and the project was such a hit that Newman talked his friend David Letterman into building a nearly identical one. More than a novelty, it captured Newman's humor and love of performance disguised as understatement, still one of the greatest sleepers ever built.
6. 1977 Nissan 200 SX. The 1977 Nissan 200 SX marked a turning point in Newman's racing career. Built and campaigned by Bob Sharp Racing, it was his second full race car and a serious force in SCCA production. Between 1977 and 1979, it won an astonishing 19 of 22 races, proof of both Newman's growing talent and the car's engineering. Based on the S10 chassis derived from the Japanese market Nissan Silvia, it ran a 2.0-liter L20B inline-4 heavily reworked for racing, compression bumped to 10.0 to 1, with dual 50mm Solex carburetors replacing the stock units for sharper throttle response. Custom fiberglass panels cut weight, and a full roll cage plus race suspension rounded out the build. Its success helped cement Newman's reputation as a legitimate driver rather than a celebrity passenger.
Preserved today in the Adam Carolla collection, it stands as a tribute to his early dominance and long partnership with Bob Sharp Racing. Not flashy, but foundational.
5. Chevrolet Corvette C4. The Corvette C4 anchored Newman's racing arsenal through the 1980s, especially in SCCA GT1 competition. Debuting in 1984, the C4 was a technological leap for the model, with a unitized chassis, aluminum suspension pieces, and digital instrumentation. Newman's race-prepped C4s were nothing like showroom cars, stripped, caged, and fitted with small-block V8s making up to 600 horsepower, depending on the class. He often raced them under his P.L. Newman alias well into his 60s, and in one of his most remarkable outings, drove a GT1 Class C4 Corvette at Watkins Glen in 2007 at age 82 and finished fourth. The C4's aerodynamic shape and balanced chassis made it a strong road racing platform, and the cars were typically maintained by his longtime partners at Bob Sharp Racing. Several survive today in private collections and the Paul Newman exhibit, high-horsepower reminders of a movie star who never stopped chasing the checkered flag. Number 4.
1967 Volkswagen Beetle convertible. Newman's 1967 VW Beetle convertible is the purest expression of his sense of humor, a sleeper wrapped in an innocent shell. He had the Beetle's body mounted on a custom mid-engine chassis built by Jerry Eisert, powered by a Holman Moody Ford Racing V8 of the kind used in top-tier machines of the day. Power went to the rear wheels through a ZF transaxle borrowed from the legendary Ford GT40.
Finished around 1970, it was a no-expense-spared build with a reinforced chassis and handling sharp enough for canyon carving, all while looking like a harmless Beetle, the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing for any unsuspecting challenger. Its one drawback was that a convertible Beetle body wasn't exactly built for high-speed stability. Even so, the car stood as proof of Newman's wit, skill, and love of stealth performance, a masterpiece in disguise, built by a man who could dream up nearly anything and then make it real.
Number 3. Nissan 350Z PLN Edition. The Nissan 350Z PLN Edition was a limited tribute to Newman's decades-long relationship with Nissan and his lasting mark on motorsport. Released after his death in the mid-2000s, the PLN Edition, named for his racing alias, wasn't a factory production model, but rather a dealer or enthusiast-built homage featuring touches inspired by his racing career. Based on the Z33 Generation 350Z, most tribute builds kept the 3.5-liter VQ35DE V6, good for around 287 to 300 horsepower, depending on model year, with some adding Nismo-style suspension, Brembo brakes, and aero upgrades. A few wore liveries echoing Newman's IMSA and SCCA cars, particularly the red, white, and blue Bob Sharp racing scheme. Nissan never built an official factory version, but tribute cars have appeared at shows and in private collections, including Adam Carolla's, rolling memorials to Newman's double life as movie star and championship-winning driver, and a fan favorite among Z-car enthusiasts.
2. Ferrari 308 GTS. The Ferrari 308 GTS is widely believed to have been part of Newman's early collection, a symbol of his rise as a Hollywood icon in the late 1970s. Introduced in 1977 with a removable Targa top, it ran a 2.9-liter V8, producing 255 horsepower in European spec or 237 in US trim, paired with a 5-speed manual gated shifter. Its Pininfarina-designed body, pop-up headlights, and mid-engine layout made it one of the most recognizable Ferraris of the era. Newman's link to the model gained steam when a 1976 Ferrari 308 GTB, chassis 19595, reportedly the first 308 GTB ever imported into the U.S., surfaced among collectors. That car had appeared on the cover of Road and Track and was later raced by Newman under Budweiser sponsorship. Though technically a GTB rather than a GTS, its history and Newman's involvement have tied the two together in collector lore. Today, it's part of Adam Carolla's collection, celebrated as much for its beauty as for its role in Newman's leap from Oscar-winning actor to genuine racing driver, a prancing horse with Hollywood roots.
1. 1987 Nissan 300ZX 2+2. Newman's 1987 Nissan 300ZX 2+2 was a purpose-built racer that marked his final competitive run with Nissan. Developed by Bob Sharp Racing, it competed in the 11-round 1987 SCCA Trans Am Series. Unlike his earlier Z cars, the 2+2's longer wheelbase gave it added high-speed stability, ideal for Trans Am's demands. Under the hood sat a VG30ET3, 2-liter turbocharged V6 tuned to roughly 650 horsepower, paired with a race transmission in a lightweight chassis with composite panels that brought total weight down to about 2,850 pounds. A deep front air dam, wide fender flares, and a rear wing rounded out the aero package. Newman didn't just race this car, he personally owned it, a rarity among his competition machines. After retirement, it was restored by Don Law Racing in Europe and later acquired by Adam Carolla, who showed it at the 2016 Goodwood Festival of Speed. Preserved today in the Paul Newman exhibit, it stands as proof of his lasting commitment to motorsport. Fast, focused, and unmistakably PLN. And there you have it, 14 cars that trace Paul Newman's journey from a curious first-timer at Lime Rock Park to a genuine, respected name in endurance and sports car racing. What makes this collection so remarkable isn't just the horsepower or the Le Mans podium finish, it's the range. A humble Datsun sedan sits alongside a 933 horsepower twin-turbo prototype, and a sleeper Volvo wagon shares garage space with a Ferrari.
That's a man who loved the craft of driving itself, not just the image of it, and who kept chasing that feeling behind the wheel well into his 80s. So now we want to hear from you. Which of these cars caught you off guard? And which one would you love to see restored and back on track? Drop your pick in the comments below. We read everyone.
If this ride through Paul Newman's garage got your motor running, smash that like button to help more gearheads find this video, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the machines and legends that built motorsport history. Thanks for riding along, and we'll see you in the next one.